Ever since Nintendo released the Game Boy back in the late 80s, they felt fit to revise the system every few years. You had the Game Boy Pocket and the Game Boy Color, and so on. Did the same with the Game Boy Advance, and now with the 3DS, they're doing the same thing again. Originally we had the 3DS, a couple years later we got the 3DS XL, which is just a larger version, not much has changed. But Nintendo's getting ready to release the new 3DS and new 3DS XL. Already available in Japan and Australia as of today. Well, it's got a few more buttons, a faster processor, and it's basically reconfigured the whole layout. So while North America still doesn't have any of the new 3DS systems, they're going to come sometime next year, we do have the Japanese version of the new 3DS XL. So today we're going to take a look at the new features, see what we like, and see what we wish Nintendo might have done differently. Let's start with the basics. At a glance, the two systems look pretty identical. We've got the XL over here and the new 3DS XL on this side. But in fact, they are slightly different, at least in dimensions. The new 3DS XL is 0.5 millimeter thinner and 0.5 millimeter deeper from the front to the back. If you look at the ports on each system, you'll see that Nintendo has moved some of them, including the game card slot, which was in the back, is now in the front. And what is actually really nice is they've recessed the port now, so the card is no longer flush with the system, which would cause you to, sometimes accidentally eject the cartridge when you didn't mean to. The stylus has also been moved to the front, as has the power button. Before, on the old XL, the power button was here, and actually it was pretty much flush with the system, which made it kind of a pain in the butt to press. Likewise, they've also moved the select and start buttons off to the side of the screen now, and these are also a little bit more raised up from the surface so they're easier to touch. The home button remains in the middle, easy to hit, you're not going to hit another button by accident. So another thing Nintendo's done is they've added new buttons, and chief among those is the added analog stick right here on the top right of the screen. So that is what's referred to as the C-stick. So if you use the Circle Pad Pro for the original 3DS or the 3DS XL, that is essentially taking place of the stick that was on the right. Now obviously it's much smaller, and they had to do that to fit it on the system. It resembles one of those little nubs you would find on an old laptop. It's very stiff, but when using it, it actually was pretty responsive. Playing Super Smash Bros., we were able to sort of move the camera around and use it for smash attacks in the game. So that was pretty nice. Another addition that came from the Circle Pad Pro, which is now built into the new 3DS systems, are the 2 additional shoulder buttons, for a total of 4. So essentially what you've got is a built-in Circle Pad Pro in this system. That's going to be great for games like Monster Hunter, where you need to sort of control your movement and the camera at the same time to get a good vantage point. A feature that's actually impossible to show on camera because it requires the use of 2 different angles, that's what your eyes would do, is the stereoscopic 3D. On the original system, the 3D worked okay, but it was really hard to find a sweet spot for most people. The new 3DS corrects that issue pretty well. What Nintendo's done is they've added an additional camera, and what these two are used now for is tracking your face. What that does is adjust the stereoscopic 3D effect, so when you take the system and you move it around and tilt it, it'll actually maintain the effect of 3D. And it works pretty well. Obviously, you're not going to be playing the game and tilting the system all over the place, but for sort of your gradual movements, it actually works, and you can even put it down on a table and still see the effect. One feature of the new smaller 3DS, which we don't actually have on the table here, is the addition of removable faceplates. So the 3DS XL, the new version, doesn't have those, but it does have a removable plate on the bottom. Now, that's not really for cosmetic purposes. What this actually does is protect the battery and the SD card. So on the one hand, you get to change out the battery, which is nice. But if you ever need to change out your SD card, which isn't something you're going to do very often, but granted, you're still going to have to unscrew the bottom to get to it. It's a bit of an inconvenient thing, but again, you're probably not going to have to change your SD card too much, so it's not really that damning. Apart from the cosmetic changes and the addition of a few buttons, one thing Nintendo's done is added a faster processor in the new line of 3DSs. At the moment, the most that you'll get out of that is that games and apps will load faster, and the eShop will open up a little bit quicker as well. But in the future, Nintendo's going to be releasing games that take advantage of the added speed. This includes Xenoblade Chronicles. Unfortunately for owners of the old 3DS, that game will not be supported. You will need a new 3DS to play it. There's no telling how many games Nintendo is going to support that sort of have that exclusivity to the faster new 3DS line, but you have to imagine they have a huge consumer base, and they're going to have to pay respect to those customers. So I don't imagine we'll see a lot of games that are exclusive to that faster processor, but it's going to happen. So for a lot of reasons, it's pretty obvious that the new 3DS systems are better than their predecessors. It's got new buttons, improved 3D, and a lot of things on the system have been reconfigured to make it easier to use. Of course, there's also the faster processor, but we won't really see the effects of that come until next year when some of the games like Xenoblade Chronicles come out. In the meantime, North America still has to wait for a release date, but it's available in Japan and Australia. While you could import one, they are region locked like the original 3DSs, so if you're in North America, probably wait until next year. Current 3DS owners, should you upgrade? My opinion is yes, because I love my 3DS library and I'm not willing to sacrifice games that are coming out in the future. But maybe you don't want to. That choice is up to you. For more new 3DS coverage, stay tuned to GameSpot.com.